In the sterile glow of a hospital corridor, a wealthy white CEO made a decision that would haunt him for decades. 3 tiny newborns, black triplets, were denied a place in his family before they'd even drawn their first breath. He buried the truth under layers of corporate power, charity galas, and perfectly rehearsed smiles. But time doesn't forget. Years later, a news headline shattered the life he'd so carefully built. They're alive. Not only alive, they were coming for him. Watch until the end, because the way they grew would shock the world. Wait a second, tell us where you're watching from in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more powerful stories like this. Jonathan Hale was a man people envied, CEO of a global conglomerate, philanthropist, and face of a progressive empire. His life was an immaculate performance. Crisp suits, eloquent speeches, flawless family photos. What no one saw was the shadow behind it all. Years ago, when his affair with a young black woman led to an unplanned pregnancy, his lawyers had handled it quietly. The triplets, 3 perfect infants, were sent away under the guise of adoption. Jonathan convinced himself it was best for everyone. He never thought of them again until one morning a social media post went viral. 3 young adults, strikingly similar in features, stood together, telling a story of survival, resilience, and injustice. Their resemblance to him was undeniable. And as their voices rose, so did the weight of his buried past. Something was coming, and Jonathan could feel the walls closing in. The triplets, Amara, Elias, and Nyla, had grown up in foster care, shuffled from home to home, often separated. They endured hunger, cold winters without proper coats, and classrooms where teachers assumed the worst of them before knowing their names. But they found each other again as teenagers, and that reunion became the start of their fight for truth. They excelled despite the odds. Amara, a law student; Elias, an award-winning journalist; and Nyla, a rising medical researcher. Each carried a piece of the puzzle, fragments of adoption records and whispers from those who had known their birth mother before she died. When Elias published a feature on children denied by wealthy white families due to race, their own story began to spread fast. The public outrage grew when internet sleuths pieced together the resemblance between them and Jonathan Hale. Photos of the triplets beside images of Jonathan in his youth were undeniable. Same jawline, same piercing eyes. Jonathan's PR team scrambled, but the triplets were already scheduled to speak at a major civil rights conference. Rumors swirled that they had damning proof, not just of their parentage, but of the deliberate racial discrimination that had kept them from him. For the first time in his life, Jonathan couldn't control the narrative. Anonymous emails landed in his inbox, copies of hospital records, paternity documents, and testimonies from people he thought were long gone. The conference was just days away, and Jonathan knew if they went through with it, his empire would burn. The conference hall was packed, cameras flashing, every major news outlet live streaming. Jonathan sat in the front row, invited by the organizers under the pretense of open dialogue. He watched as the triplets took the stage, confident, composed, unshaken by the weight of thousands of eyes. Amara spoke first, recounting the hospital decision. Elias followed, unveiling the documents, his name, his signature, the note that read, "Not to be raised under my name." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Then Nyla stepped forward with the final blow, a DNA report, 99.9% match. The room went silent. Jonathan's hands trembled, not from the evidence, but from the sudden realization that this wasn't just public humiliation. It was the moment his children had taken back the power he once stole. Jonathan left the hall without speaking, the cameras chasing him into the cold night. The triplets didn't celebrate, not in the way people expected. They had never wanted his fortune. They wanted truth, acknowledgement, and the chance to rewrite their own story. In the weeks that followed, Jonathan's resignation was announced, his board citing ethical concerns. Donations poured into scholarships under the triplets' names, inspiring other children from fractured beginnings. But the more profound impact was this: the illusion of untouchable power cracked wide open. This was not just a story of three abandoned infants, it was a mirror held up to a system that made their denial possible. And the question lingered in every viewer's mind: how many more stories like theirs remain buried? Where are you watching from? Take care.